You have seen the footage. A pod of orcas coordinates in perfect silence, tearing apart a great white shark like it is nothing. A polar bear, king of the Arctic, is dragged into the water by the same black and white hunters. Blue whales, the largest animals that have ever lived, are drowned by them. And every documentary, every textbook, every glossy nature magazine tells you the same story. The killer whale is the true ruler of the ocean, the apex, the one thing nothing else can touch. It is a clean, satisfying answer. It is also almost certainly wrong. Because the more marine biologists study the sea, the more the whole idea of who rules it starts to fall apart. The orca is powerful, yes. Terrifying, yes. But rulership is not the same thing as violence. And when you follow the actual flow of energy, control, and consequence through the world's oceans, the trail does not end at the killer whale. It does not end at any predator you have ever seen on television. It ends somewhere completely unexpected, in a creature so small you would need a microscope to see it. A creature that decides, quite literally, what breathes on this planet. We have been staring at the wrong throne for a very long time. To understand how wrong, we have to start by questioning what ruler even means. In popular imagination, the ruler of an ecosystem is whoever sits at the top of the food chain, whoever eats and is not eaten, the classic apex predator. By that definition, orcas win almost everywhere. They dominate every ocean on Earth. They have no natural enemies. They pass down cultural hunting techniques through generations. They coordinate attacks with a level of intelligence that unnerves the biologists who study them. But here is the problem. Ruling an ecosystem is not just about being feared. It is about deciding what happens in that ecosystem. It is about controlling the flow of energy, the availability of oxygen, the temperature of the water, and the survival of every species below you. And by that measure, the orca is not a ruler. The orca is a tenant, a well-armed one, but a tenant nonetheless. It lives inside a system that someone else built and continues to maintain, whether the orca notices or not. Once you accept this, the search for the real ruler begins in a very different direction. You have to stop looking up at the top of the food chain and start looking down, all the way down. Consider a simple fact that most people never really absorb. Roughly every second breath you take, the oxygen in your lungs came from the ocean, not the forest. The Amazon is not the lungs of the planet. That title belongs to something else entirely. Something that lives just beneath the surface of every sea, in numbers so vast that even estimates seem like guesses. This something is not a whale. It is not a shark. It is not any animal you have ever named. It is phytoplankton. Trillions upon trillions of microscopic, drifting, plant-like organisms that produce somewhere between 50 and 80% of all the oxygen on Earth. Read that number again. Half or more of the air on this planet is being manufactured right now by things smaller than a grain of sand. Every animal on land, every human, every bird, every insect is indirectly living inside the exhalation of the sea, and the sea's breath comes from these tiny, forgotten workers. If you want to know who really rules, follow the oxygen. Now, here is where the story gets even stranger. Because phytoplankton do not just make oxygen, they form the absolute base of the entire ocean food web. Krill eat them. Small fish eat krill. Bigger fish eat small fish. Larger predators eat those. Whales eat entire clouds of krill by the ton. Orcas eat the whales, the seals, and the sharks. Every mouthful, at every level, is powered by energy that was originally captured from sunlight by these microscopic drifters. Take them away, and the whole pyramid collapses. Not slowly, not gently, all at once. So you have an organism that produces the air we breathe and feeds every large animal in the sea. That sounds like a ruler to me. But here is the twist. Even phytoplankton are not truly on top. Because something else, something even more invisible, controls them. Marine viruses. The idea sounds absurd at first, Viruses do not have brains. They do not hunt. They cannot move on their own. And yet, in a single milliliter of seawater, there are more than 10 million viruses. Add that up across the volume of the world's oceans, and you get a number that becomes almost meaningless. Something on the order of 10 to the 30th power. That is a 1 followed by 30 zeros. Marine viruses are, by an enormous margin, the most numerous biological entities on Earth. If you stacked every marine virus end to end, the line would stretch far beyond our galaxy. And here is what those viruses do. Every single day, they kill roughly 20% of the ocean's microorganisms. Every day, not once a year, not seasonally, daily. A relentless, invisible pruning that shapes the entire microbial population of the sea. Now stop and think about what that actually means. If the phytoplankton feed the entire food web, and the viruses control the phytoplankton, then the viruses are essentially adjusting the master dial of the ocean. They decide how much oxygen gets made. They decide how much carbon gets buried. They decide how many algae blooms explode and how many collapse. They regulate the balance between species we have not even named yet, and they do this without a single act of what we would call intention. The great predators do not know this is happening. The orca chasing a seal does not know that the water she is swimming through is being terraformed in real time by entities she cannot even perceive. The great white gliding under a shoal of tuna does not know that the tuna itself is a distant descendant of energy captured by a microbe that was killed by a virus this morning. The entire visible drama of the ocean is a shadow play on a curtain being held up by things too small to see. But even this is not the whole story, because if we accept that ruling means shaping the whole system, then there is another candidate we cannot ignore. Something bigger than a virus, smaller than a whale, and in raw biomass, probably the most abundant multicellular animal group on Earth, copepods. You have almost certainly never thought about a copepod. Most people have not. They are tiny crustaceans, usually less than a few millimeters long, that live in almost every drop of ocean water on the planet. Their total biomass is estimated to outweigh every other animal group in the sea combined. Every fish larva, every filter-feeding whale, and every larger zooplankton eater is chasing copepods either directly or indirectly. They are the middle managers of the entire ocean, taking energy from phytoplankton and passing it up to every animal we recognize. They also do something else. When copepods die or excrete waste, that material sinks. It sinks fast. And as it sinks, it carries carbon down into the deep ocean, where it can be locked away for centuries or millennia. This process, called the biological pump, is one of the main reasons Earth's atmosphere has stayed livable. Copepods, in effect, are helping to regulate the climate you are living in right now. They are pulling carbon out of the sky and putting it in the abyss, one microscopic pellet at a time. So already we have three unlikely rulers: phytoplankton, who make the air, viruses, who control the phytoplankton, and copepods, who move the energy and lock away the carbon. None of them look like kings. None of them roar or hunt or dominate anything visible. And yet, without any one of them, the ocean as we know it would cease to function within weeks. Now, before we continue, it is worth asking a fair question. If these tiny organisms really are the true rulers, why has no one ever told us this? Why does every ocean documentary open with a shark, a whale, or a swirling school of fish, and never with a magnified image of a virus? The answer is uncomfortable but simple. Our species is built to notice big things. Our brains evolved on land, in a world where the important stories were about lions, wolves, and enemies our size or larger. When we look at the sea, we bring that same land brain with us. We assume the biggest thing must be the most important. We assume the fastest and the fiercest must be the ones in charge. We are, in effect, reading the ocean with the wrong pair of glasses. This is not just a poetic complaint. It has real consequences. Because when we think orcas or sharks rule the sea, we build our conservation, our research budgets, and even our fear around them. We fund studies on charismatic megafauna and often ignore the microbes that hold the whole system together. And when we notice something is going wrong, like ocean acidification, coral bleaching, or dead zones, we are usually noticing the shadow, not the cause. The cause is almost always something invisible failing in the background. So if orcas are not the rulers, and the true rulers are microscopic, does that mean the whole idea of ocean dominance is fake? Not quite. It means the throne is shared, and shared in a way most people never imagine. There are multiple layers of control in the sea, and each layer has its own hidden king. Consider the layer of the reef. Everyone assumes the shark or the grouper is the boss of the reef, but the actual architect of the reef is a partnership between coral polyps and microscopic algae called zooxanthellae. These algae live inside the coral itself, providing food through photosynthesis, and in return, the coral gives them shelter. Without that microscopic partnership, there is no reef, no fish, no sharks, no colors, just bare rock. When corals bleach and die, it is because that partnership breaks down. The reef does not have a king, it has a marriage, and when the marriage fails, the entire kingdom collapses. Consider the layer of the open ocean. Everyone assumes the tuna or the marlin is the ruler of the blue water, but the actual driver is the movement of nutrients, brought to the surface by upwelling currents from the deep. Those currents feed the phytoplankton, which feed the copepods, which feed the small fish, which draw in the tuna. Change the currents even slightly, and the tuna vanish. The predator does not decide where to live, the current decides. Consider the deep sea. Everyone assumes the giant squid or the sperm whale is the ruler of the abyss, but the actual foundation is a slow, silent rain of dead material falling from the surface. Marine snow. The corpses of surface organisms, drifting down for weeks, feeding entire ecosystems in permanent darkness. Without that steady drizzle of death from above, the deep would be almost empty. The kings of the abyss depend entirely on the leftovers of the surface. They do not rule. They receive. Every level of the ocean tells the same story. The visible power belongs to hunters. The real power belongs to systems, currents, and organisms so small they barely register. And once you see this, you cannot unsee it. The whole picture rearranges itself. But there is one more twist. Because among all these hidden rulers, there is one player that scientists are only now beginning to appreciate, and it is the strangest of all. The player is not an animal, not a virus, and not a plant. It is something that behaves like all three at once. It is the microbial mat. Vast, interlocking communities of bacteria and archaea that carpet the seafloor in places we can barely reach, and even coat the shells and skin of many marine animals in ways we are still discovering. These microbial communities perform chemistry that no larger creature can. They eat methane, they fix nitrogen, they process sulfur, they break down pollutants, they convert energy in ways that seem, frankly, alien. In some deep ocean vents, entire ecosystems exist without sunlight at all, powered by microbial mats that turn chemicals from the Earth's crust into food. These are ecosystems where the sun does not rule, where the ancient chemistry of the planet rules instead, mediated by microbes that have been perfecting their craft for over 3 billion years. 3 billion years. That is not a typo. Microbial life in the ocean has been continuously evolving and refining itself for longer than most stars in our galaxy have existed in their current form. Compared to that timeline, the orca, the great white, even the ancient sharks are all newcomers. They are guests at a very old party, hosted by beings so patient they measure history in geological ages. This is the deepest layer of the answer. The true ruler of the ocean is not any single species. It is the microbial civilization that predates every big animal and outnumbers them by unimaginable margins. That civilization runs the chemistry, the oxygen, the carbon, the nutrient cycles, and the invisible checks and balances that make the sea a functioning living system. The whales are magnificent. The sharks are terrifying, but they are all, in a sense, minor characters on a stage built and maintained by beings we almost never talk about. So where does that leave the orca? Still powerful, still stunning, still the most impressive hunter you will ever watch, but not the ruler. More like a general who thinks he runs the country because he has the biggest army, without realizing that the country is actually being run by farmers, engineers, and chemists he has never met. The general can march wherever he wants, but without the farmers, he starves. Without the engineers, his roads crumble. Without the chemists, his air runs out. We were wrong about the ocean because we assumed the story was written in teeth and blood. It is not. It is written in oxygen molecules, in viral bursts, in copepod droppings sinking through kilometers of dark water, in microbial handshakes on the seafloor. The real ruler was always the one we could not see, and once you understand that, the sea becomes a very different place. It stops being a war zone with a king, and starts being a vast, intricate, quietly humming civilization where every layer depends on the invisible workers below. The orca still owns the surface drama, but she is not the emperor. She is a passenger on a ship whose engine room she will never enter, and the ocean, the real ocean, keeps running its impossible machinery without asking anyone's permission. Every breath you take is a receipt from that machinery. Every glass of water, every stable coastline, every livable climate. It all traces back not to the predators we celebrate, but to the microbes we ignore. Maybe that is the most humbling truth in nature, that true power almost never looks like power. It looks like patience, like scale, like a quiet job done trillions of times a second, in the dark, by something that will never be filmed. So the next time you watch a documentary and hear the narrator call the killer whale the ruler of the seas, allow yourself a small smile, because now you know. The real rulers were never at the top, they were at the base, and they were always the small ones, the invisible ones. The ones that built the world before any predator ever existed to fight over it. Now, we would love to hear from you. Which part of this reshaped how you see the ocean? Was it the fact that most of the air you breathe comes from microscopic drifters? Was it the idea that viruses quietly kill a fifth of the sea's microbes every single day? Was it copepods pulling carbon into the abyss and helping keep our climate alive? Or was it the deep realization that microbial civilizations have been running the planet for billions of years while we argued about sharks? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We genuinely read them, and we love hearing what stuck with you. If this changed the way you look at the sea, even a little, hit the like button and subscribe so you do not miss what comes next. There are more hidden kingdoms down there than we can count, and we are only just beginning to translate their language. See you on the next descent.